You can hear 100% infill. Huge thing here. This is also on island. I mean, can you even see it 3D printed? Oh no, even play around. It's very nice. So we are in the lab. 40mm tube. Whoa. Be mine. All our different materials. How do you guys like this? I think we are live. Hey everyone, how's everyone doing? Non-fam, Nawaz Abdullah. Oh, it's a lot of people in the chat already. Everything Plus Ultra. Who do we have here? Tro Firelights, Slim Picking, Mark U of You. Thank you everyone for joining our new episode of PRINTBUSTERS. We have a lot of topics actually right now. I mean 5 topics, but when you know the amount of time we spend on each topic, then 5 is already a lot. 5 is already a lot. So first thing first, if you haven't joined our last stream, so we changed the way to enter our awesomeness. The main reason is because of the apostrophe. Apparently, depending on the region you come from, the apostrophe is different. And if you're not using the same as the one I'm using on my keyboards, then you cannot enter. So it was suggested to switch to no contraction for the verb. So yeah, just a quick note. As I'm sure most of you are familiar with the old one, so I didn't want that you cannot enter. So let me put that banner so that everyone can see. So let's bring some awesomeness in that 4th episode, I think. Let me check. Yeah, 4th episode of PRINTBUSTERS. And again, if you know anyone that would be interested in our discussions, then feel free to go and share that on your social media. Invite hobbyists, or I mean, at this stage is more than a hobby if you're diving that much into the science of 3D printing. But anyone that you think would be interested. My Tech Fan, 3 a.m. here. I'm not sure if I will be here until the end. Well, I'm already surprised you're here at the beginning. Thank you for joining my tech fun. Destruction. Is that why I've never won? Maybe destruction, but right now there is no reason. Now there's no reason that you cannot win. Okay, so remember our different topics. So let me go back. So we have warping, flow calibration, food safety, bud shear line, and the wet filament. So the wet filament will be the topic for today. But I will do a quick. I've done a little bit of testing. Actually, the day after, or even I think the same day of our PRINTBUSTERS last week for the benchy hull line, and I think I've got some pretty interesting results on where does that line come from. And then we have a new topic that is not here yet, and I would like to get your feedback on whether you think it would be interesting to dive into. So destruction, wet filament, yeah, we're gonna talk about this. So for warping, I haven't seen any new discussion. So I'm not sure if people are losing interest in warping. We're going too far and it's too hard, so less people are diving into. I have marked you a few that are really trying hard to make the TPU warping, and I think he was doing this during our last stream. He was doing this live and really trying to make it warp. But since the live stream, there's no other messages. I've done a little bit more research on my side, but I think that's one of the limitation of PRINTBUSTERS. We're pushing things so far that we lose a lot of people on the way. So what we can do is to summarize a little bit the questions that we're trying to answer at the moment. For example, there's actually you cannot really see when I'm writing. So let me switch to this. No, to this. Yeah, now you can see a little bit more. So what I was thinking, I was wondering, why there's no more discussion on that topic, and maybe because we start to have so many different questions and go all over the place, it's very difficult to get things organized. So my guess was it's maybe people are losing interest because we lose our organization. We lose, where is the thinking line, and whether it's the new people that are joining or whether it's some old people that were in the discussion before and no more today. Maybe we have lost people on the way because the discussion went too far, and then people lost the line and how we've been thinking about it. So what I'm thinking is, what we can have is, for each topic, we always have the question that we are currently trying to answer. For example, why we're trying to make TPU warp. We're trying to make TPU warp because we were talking about the stress can be released above TG. And the TG of TPU is extremely low, right? It's below room temperature. So theoretically, TPU cannot accumulate stress according to the theories. So that's one of the reasons, because I can understand why people arrive here and then why these guys are trying to make TPU warp. What's the how can this help? And so maybe that's the thing. And then the other thing, for example, I've shared a lot of link about coefficient of thermal expansion, and then maybe people are asking, why do we spend so much time on coefficient of thermal expansion? And the main reason is because we want to understand why PC and PLA warps differently in the thermal expansion technology, the thermal expansion theory. So all of these things, my guess is maybe it was pretty clear in my mind where we are, what are we looking for, etc. But the fact that we have much less people involved now makes me realize that, okay, it might not be as clear for everyone else. So I've already put some stuff together, like the different question which I put on the website that we can publish. but that was my thinking. So that's why today we don't have much things new on warping, and I guess that's the main reason. If you Google TPU warping, there are many posts from people having problems with warping, so it should be possible. Yeah, I guess maybe it is possible. So the idea is to reproduce the warping, so that we have the understanding of what it takes to make that TPU warp. What's up? Everything plus ultra. I like your username every time I say that. PLA plus, PLA Pro, PLA Max, PLA plus ultra. So that's the main thing. So for flow calibration, I think is clear. There's again, same for flow calibration. There's no new stuff since we put the summary, and I think for flow calibration we pretty much went around it. There's a few things that we can confirm, but I don't think people would spend time confirming this. So once I get back to my printer, then I can run a few tests to confirm this. Food safety is pretty much the same. I've put the summary here, and there is no there is some highlights after that, but I think pretty much this topic is the same. There's no much people that continue that discussion. I think the last message was on June the 8th. So same, flow calibration and food safety are more towards closing that topic. Warping more towards nobody knows where we are, and then nobody understand anymore what we're trying to do. So I think that's why it has stopped. So we need to solve that. And the benchy hull line. So for the benchy hull line, the first idea was when we read all the different posts, it was because of the layer time, right? The layer time was different, and somehow something else was happening, and then we've got some example, etc. And then during our discussion, we thought that maybe it could come from two other things. The first thing was the overlap, the fact that there is a full layer, and as there is an overlap between the full layer and the shell, then you are actually extruding more. So you have that 20% overlap. So that 20% of material that was already here, and then you have the infill that's going to overlap 20%, then that extra material needs to go somewhere, right? So that's one thinking of why you have a bulge on the side. And then the other one was maybe the fact that there's a full layer, the shell cannot shrink as much as the others. So I've done a few tests. The first one is this one, which we talked about. So basically, you print a regular cube with pretty much no infill. You just have that cross, and then in the middle, you have, I think I put eight or 10 full layers, like 100% infill, and then you can clearly see the bulge on the side here. And what you can also see, which is a little bit less apparent on the picture, but you can see it a little bit, is it looks like this. The cube looks like this. So that goes towards the idea of all the shells are shrinking except the one that cannot shrink, kind of. So you can see that there is no much infill and the top of the cube and the bottom of the cube. So that's why it's going, you have the top layer here, and then you have that middle full layer, and then in between there is nothing to hold the material. And that supports one of the reasons that you have the thing that shrink. And for the benchy is the same. For the benchy, if you go to the benchy here, is the same. You have here, you have all of these shells that don't have much in the inside, right? And then so they kind of shrink, and then suddenly you have that full layer, and then this part on the side here, the part on the left cannot shrink anymore, but this part can still shrink, and that would also explain why the hull line is not on the at the front. So you can see, for example, on this bench here, you have the hairline at the back, and then it disappears at the front. And we had some better picture here. You have it at the back, and then it disappears at the front. So that could also that could also explain that. And then, so what I did is to confirm the hypothesis, but I don't think it was very good. But just to show you, my way of thinking, I sliced a benchy, but without the overlap. But what I did is I did more than no overlap. Like I put a little bit of space between the top layer and the shell in order to allow the shell to shrink. And then when I printed that, then well, I didn't finish the benchy because we don't have to finish the benchy. But when I printed that, you can see that I have the different picture on the Discord, but there is no hairline at all. So of course you have a big issue, is that you have this gap between the top layer and the shell, because I wanted to leave a small gap in order for the shell to shrink. And then you don't have that you don't have the hairline anymore. You see a little bit of a thing here, but it's because the light is behind and it's a shadow. But I tried to put a different light reflection, so without the shadow, and then you can see there's really no hairline. There's no defect. And even to the touch, because the cube was the same. The cube, if you check the picture, there's no really bulge, but you can feel, like you have to put your fingers, and then you can feel that it's it's slightly coming out. And the benchy, I tried, but I couldn't find anything. So, but it doesn't really say that it is because there is space to shrink. The only thing it says is having space helps, but it could also be that you are not doing any overlap anymore, so you don't have that additional material. And that's the thing that I completely forget, because in my mind it was like, oh, I leave space so that it can shrink, so now it can shrink, so I solved the problem. So now we know the hairline is because the layer cannot shrink. But I forgot to confirm that what if you have 100% you have 100% top layer, but there is no overlap between that top layer and that shell. So of course it has to be very, very well calibrated, right? Because you can put no overlap on the slicer, but when you are printing, the fact that it's slightly over extruding, maybe 0.01% over extruding, then the fact that it's completely full, even 0.01, then can create a little bit of a bulge. So I don't know yet exactly how to confirm exactly, like, how to make a top layer like with a perfect flow calibration. So we can try, but that's the thing I forgot when I was doing the test. So what we confirmed so far is that if you leave a little bit of a gap, then you solve the line problem. Now you create some other problem. You can see on top here, except if somehow you can you can tell the slicer to leave a gap for the outer shell and not leave a gap for the inner shell. For example, here, I mean the outer shell that are inside the model. I don't know how to say that part, but you get what I mean. So that's a little bit of and then let's see if some other slow bench. Yeah, some people were playing with the layer height and the speed also. Blah 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 blah. Yeah, and then the article was shared. Yeah, and then you have Nero that talked about it also. But I checked. There's nothing really really interesting in what he said. So I think the main reason is it's just a question he see in the chat, and then he just tried to answer quickly, and then he continue with his stream. So I don't think he spent the actual amount of time to think about it. And then you have another thing that was interested is apparently Cura is now slicing the benchy differently. So I was intrigued by that, because if that's the case, then it means they found the issue and they are now slicing in a way that you don't have that issue. So what I've done is I have Cura 5.0 here and 4 something here. So we can double check. So this is 4.1, 4.13. Okay, so that's this Cura, and then this Cura is 5.0. Okay, so we have two different Cura and two different benches. Let me read a little bit. James Huffman, I just solved a serious intermittent under extrusion issue by drying my Polylite Pro. Oh, great. Polylite PLA Pro? Okay, interesting. I say interesting because it's PLA Pro usually don't have that issue. Okay, so what I've done, let me remove that print for now. Okay, so what I've done is I put everything in discard change, everything default. Okay, I took I put a completely new printer, Ultimaker, the Ultimaker S5, and then everything is by default, and then I slice it. So that's 5.0, and then I did the same here. I put Ultimaker 5.0, Ultimaker 5 S5, and then I put everything the same here. So I will put again all the default here. Slice. Okay, so we can see the difference. So on the 4.13, if you go and check here, it goes like this. Okay, you have your 1, 2, 3 shells, and then you have your top layer, etc. Okay. And then if you go on the 5, the 5.0, if you go on the 5.0 here, it's a little bit different, but you will see where that difference come from. You see, the first thing to notice, which I've never noticed before, is the default number of shell in Cura was always 3. And somehow in 5.0, it's now 2. That's the default amount of shell. And I always liked Cura because the default was 3. And for me, 3 shells have much better quality than 2 shell. And I have no idea why they change back to 2 shell. So actually not even change back, because I think from the very beginning it was always 3 shells. So that's interesting. So I think that's the main reason why now we see a gap between the top layer and the shell. But if we go there and then we change the number of shell to 2 in order to have compare apple to apple, then you basically have the same thing. You can go here, and now you basically have the same thing. So to see it better, we can remove the infill. So if you go on the infill, and then we can remove the infill, so we can see the gap, and then remove the infill also here. You will see the gap a little bit better. Yeah, here. So whether you are on 4.13 or whether you are on 5.0, you can see that there is this gap here, and that's normal, because this top layer is meant. I mean, this top layer is a top layer, so it depends on what is above. It has no dependency on the shell next to it. It's just that the more. Oh, actually, you know what? The gap seems to be much more on the 4.13. Let me go on the same layer. So this is layer 15, and this is layer 75, and this is layer 75. Yeah, actually, wait. The gap seems to be much more actually on the 4.13. So why could that? Actually, we can check. You can check here, And then here, oh, that's interesting. So there is a change. You can see here, the top layer doesn't touch. Oh, sorry, I moved the benchy. It doesn't touch the shell, but here it touches the shell. I haven't noticed that before. You can see here. You see there's a gap. There's a gap between here, and there's no gap here. And we can also see on the outside the gap is much bigger than this one. So we need a benchy slicer by Cura, only slice benchy so we don't get the line. Won't slice anything else correctly. Well, hopefully we can find Mark, you a few. We can find a solution, because this issue is not only for the benchy, right? It's just that the benchy is the one that most people print and have this issue. But the idea here is for any model that has that configuration of a top layer in the middle of the print, then you will have that issue. So it would be great if the slicer can find a way to always solve that issue when you have that scenario, that configuration in your model. But did my Cura just crash? Oh, my Cura just crashed. Okay, so I've heard that 5.0 was not very good, but not that much. So let me open it again. Ultimaker Cura quit unexpectedly. Yeah, I noticed that. Yeah, I don't know if you guys had issue with Cura 5.0, but I've seen so many complaints about that Cura. I mean, I guess it's normal because it's 5.0, so it's a completely new version, and then, I guess they have to fix all the bugs now. So hopefully the 0.1 will come out soon. But let me put back my benchy inside, because if it crashed because I'm slicing a benchy, then it's not the ideal slicer. But let me slice it again. What we were saying is 0%, and then that's it. It was mostly a joke. I like overlap theory, although the shrink theory. Yeah, Mark USU, you know what? I think so too. The fact, sorry, I forgot to read, but I like the overlap theory more over the shrink theory. Me too. I think the bulge come because if the shrink theory is correct, it means that the whole model it's out of dimension, and only the part that has the full layer to prevent shrinking is the one with the right dimension. And when I checked my benchy, it was the right dimension. All the benchy was the right dimension. And oh yeah, I forgot to tell you, but it was not the case. Okay, so let me organize my speech. So in this case, for the cube, the bulge was slightly bigger than 2 centimeters. So it's a 2 centimeters by 2 centimeter cube. Okay, but the inside here was slightly lower than 2 centimeters. So it's really like this. But my guess is because it's a cube and I put almost no infill. So it's like an extreme case where that layer in the middle would stay hot and then would just would just shrink in this way. But I think in general with a 20% infill or 15% infill and a big enough model, I don't think you have that issue. So I couldn't take the measurement of the benchy because I had no ideas of where I was on the model, and I don't know the exact dimension. But yeah, my thinking is this. I have the same thinking as you, Mark UFU. So we just need to find a way to print a benchy with no infill overlap. But like when I say no, is like not like just in the slicer, there's no overlap. but in reality, your flow is very well calibrated. So even in reality, there's no overlap. And then we can see what's happening. Okay, so is my Cura better now? Okay. Another thing I realized is the Benchy on Cura 5.0 is 3 hours. The Benchy on Cura 4.13 is 3.5 hours. But anyway, so I'm still intrigued by this gap here. Why there is let me check. So it goes up, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and then here there's no gap. Here there is no gap. I'm talking about, between that yellow line and that green line. Okay, so when it goes like this, so there is no gap here. Oh, okay. So am I extruding thicker? Because you see the shell here. There's no gap in between, but there's a gap here. So let me check. Okay, so I'm 0.35. That's my line width, and then here I'm 0.4. Oh, okay. So, interesting. So that's another big difference between 4.13 and 5.0. So if you didn't know before, then Cura always put 0.35 because they have what they called an overlap compensation stuff, which where is that? Wall thickness. Let me put. Do I have everything activated? Check all. They have something that is called. Let me try to find this. Like the shell, like the nozzle. Let me. You know what? Let me show you. Let me show you what they do with the small PPT. Because that was something very how to say, very specific to Cura. Like no other slicer was doing this. So basically, let me find my nozzle. So you have, let me draw a beautiful nozzle here. So you have your nozzle here, and if you were extruding, do you like my art skill? So let's say you extruded a shell, okay? So that's your shell. So let's find the most beautiful color I have here. There you go. So that's one shell, right? Let me put it a little bit bigger. So regular slicer would print a shell here. So I'm looking this way, right? So I'm looking. It's a cross section of printing. So the nozzle is going in my screen, right? And it comes from in front of the screen. So that's what I'm looking. And then you have printing the other shell here. So let me, you know what? Let me put some color there. Okay. So, and then it's going to print that here. So it's kind of, they just print. So that's 3 shell. Okay. And then it's going to print that shell. So it's going to print that one and then come back to print that one and then that one. But on Cura, it's printing this one. And then it's going to print a little bit like this. Like it will print this way. And then the idea is that what is left on the side, so here is the overlap, and then here is where it's actually extruding. And the idea is what is actually extruding is 0.35, and then you have a 0.05 here. So that's what I remember of why it's a 0.35. But now it's a 0.4. So most likely now it's not doing this. It's extruding this way. Does that make sense? Is that better with PPT? So now they went back to 0.4, which is interesting. Does Cura allow you to set the distance between inner and outer wall? No, I don't think so. So you mean between the green and the red? No, I don't think so. I don't think you can set a distance between the green and the red distraction. Rover, have an email for a next week's topic for you. Okay, great. You can put it on Discord as well, Rover. Oh, Rover, are you the one that has problem with Discord? Cannot enter our Discord? 5.0 has been good for me so far. Okay, that's good to know, sleep thinking. Yeah, everything would shrink, not just at the line, but over extrusion caused by overlap would create a line. Well, I think the shrink theory is still valid, because if everything shrink properly, but the top layer part here does not shrink, then it will also create a line, right? Everything would shrink, not just at the line. Yeah, everything would shrink, and the fact that the line does not shrink, then that creates the line. So I think the theory, I think, is still okay. It's just I don't really believe in it. Also, Cura 5 prints first the most outer wall, then the inner wall. It's called wall ordering. Yeah. But I think you also have this on 4.13. You could also decide in which way you print your walls, if I remember well. Miniatures, thank you for joining. By the way, you mistyped I'm awesome, just so you know. So it means you didn't enter the giveaway. Mark UFU, is there a Cura setting to adjust the amount of overlap at a wall? Mark UFU, do you mean from a wall to a wall? Like the amount of overlap from wall to wall? Yeah, that's actually what I was looking for, because I know I know they have this type of thing. So let me check. And printed the inner wall, they offset the whole nozzle to overlap when. Okay, so what is it? Inset applies to the path of the outer wall. If the outer wall is smaller than the nozzle and printed after the inner wall, use this offset to get the hole in the nozzle to overlap with the inner wall instead of the outside of the model. Oh, okay. That's a little bit this, but I think they had a outer wall before inner wall, alternate extra wall, compensate wall overlap. Oh, compensate wall overlap. I think that's this one. Compensate the flow for parts of a wall being printed where there is already a wall in place. Compensate outer wall overlaps. Okay, so, but I don't think you can create that overlap. Where can you can compensate the overlap? Like, for example, if you print, where is my PPT? If let's say, if you have to print a wall of 0.7, let's say, okay, your wall is, yeah, but let me think. Can you put 0.7 in your wall? Line width, blah, blah, the walls. Wall thick. So what if your wall thickness is 0. So what if your wall thickness is 0.5? Then how do you slice that? Is that rounded up to 0.35? Yeah, okay. So okay, so he doesn't care about my wall thickness. So basically, I don't even. Then why do they put wall thickness? Then just put wall line count, right? It's not Yeah. So let me put back the two walls. So yeah, what I wanted to figure out is this. So what if I use 35 here? The line width 35. Am I going to have the same thing as here? I'm going to have that gap here. Here, the gap here. So I put 35, and now no, I still don't have the gap. I think it's a different setting, because you see it's over extruding here. you can see here it's most likely 0.35, and then here it's forcing to make it thicker in order to fill the gap, I guess, in between. So there is some kind of setting that says, if there is a small gap, then just fill it by over extruding, something like this. That there must be this kind of setting. Let me put everything and then let's check. So infill, no. So maybe wall, like thin wall. There must be something with thin wall. Print thin wall. Print pieces of the model which are horizontally thinner than the nozzle size. Minimum feature size, minimum thickness of thin features, model, blah, blah, blah. Minimum thin wall line width. Whole horizontal expansion. There must be something that force him to not do this. To not do this. Because if this one I put 0.4, sorry guys, I really don't understand what's happening here. Is it did I scale my model at a different scale? No, I don't think so. No, it's 100%, and then my benchy here is 100%. 60, 31, 48. 60, 31, 48. No, it's the same benchy. It's the same benchy. So I'm 0.4 line width, and then here is even here is smaller. But let me put back to the default setting. 0.4, and then I slice it, and most likely I won't have that gap. I don't understand why. Yeah, you see. So there must be wall extruder, wall thickness, wall cone, wall transition length. When transitioning between different numbers of walls, as part becomes thinner, a certain amount of space is allowed it to split or join the wall. Okay. The number of wall counted from the center, blah, blah, blah. When to create transition between even and odd numbers of wall, a wedge shape with an angle. Yeah, okay. Prevent transitioning back and forth between one extra wall and one less. This margin, blah, blah, okay. Wipe distance of a travel move inserted after the outer wall to hide the Z. Oh, that's the one we talked about last time during the Q&A. People were asking how to hide the Z seam. So that's one of the one. Yeah, I don't know if one of you know that. I'm a little bit lost on why Cura 4.13 has this gap and this one doesn't. There's a setting that I'm missing here. Is there a Cura setting to adjust the amount? I got it, that one. Discord does not allow me. No, wondering what overlap setting there are if you search for them. Just not. Oh, you mean if I just search? So if I just search for overlap, outer wall inset, top and bottom, skin overlap, infill overlap percentage, infill wipe distance, blah, 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 union overlapping volume, blah, blah, infill mesh. Yeah, I guess the regular one. I don't see any additional one that I haven't heard of. Hey, Loyal, PRINTBUSTERS is awesome. Well, at the moment, we are a little bit stuck. Because I don't understand why there is this slicing difference between 4.13 and 5.0. So PRINTBUSTERS is stuck at the moment. I believe 5.0 use multi-line width and 4 does not. Multi-line width. Yeah, multi-line width. But where do you set that? Where do you tell him if there is a gap, then feel free to extrude more or something like this? Is that in experiments? No, because experimental, it's not used in default setting. I mean, they're not changing this too much. Flow rate, compensation factor, overhang angle, wall angle, overhang wall speed, small feature speed. No, there's nothing there. Special mode, no, I don't think so. No, I think it must be somewhere around infill, not even like infill or top bottom or wall. It must be somewhere there, like maybe infill. The fact that, because it should be a gap, so it should be the place. The responsibility of that place is for the infill, but somehow the wall is taking the responsibility by filling the thing. So maybe if you go on infill density, connect infill line, offset, random infill minimum area. Yeah, there's nothing for infill, and I have all the setting. I'm surprised that infill doesn't have much more setting than that. Or maybe top bottom. No, it's not top bottom. It must be somewhere in the wall stuff. Seam corner preference, seam alignment, whole horizontal expansion, initial layer minimum, thin wall, layer width. Width of the wall that will replace thin features according to the minimum feature size of the model. Yeah, you know what, guys? I have no ideas. So I still want to talk about that wet topic. So we're gonna leave that one for now. Oh, you know what? Check this. The benchy is symmetrical, right? Look at this. The benchy, theoretically, I mean, to the best of my knowledge, is symmetrical. So why would that side do the same thing? Like it's over extruding to fill that gap. But on this side, it is not. It is not over extruding to fill the gap. Why would that be the case if the benchy is symmetrical? Or did we just discover that the benchy was not symmetrical? There is a 1 millimeter difference between left and right. I need help, guys. I need help. What's your click to see what's new? Yeah, but is that gonna help? Allow slicing engine, formula, blah, 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 blah. Please announce the new slicing, blah, blah. Okay. Part-time, improve the profile, blah, blah, blah. Improve 20%, blah, blah. Okay. Streamline MakerSpace integration. Upgrade your, blah, blah. Okay. Ultimaker Academy. Okay. New slicing engine, renew Ultimaker, improve profile. Other features, new Cura icon, new Cura splash screen, updated digital build, setting for metal implementation, shrinkage compensation is now available. Oh, we should look at this. We were talking about shrinkage and stuff for flow calibration and warping. So we should check what's that shrinkage compensation. But anyway, incomplete language, blah, blah, blah. Bug fixes, print definition profile, community translation. Yeah, so it's this all new engine uses variable line width when preparing files for printing, meaning you can now print thin and integrate part more accurately and with great strength. Yeah, I mean, I understand that they use variable line width. That's not a problem. But my two questions, question number one, can you control that? Because I haven't seen any setting to allow us to control that variable infill, or is that just in the slicing engine? So you cannot control anything. That's how it is. If you want a gap here because you wanted to make it squishy, then you cannot just change your slicer, which I find it strange, because sometimes you want that squishiness, or you want to make a I'm losing my internet. Am I back? Yeah, should be back now. So yeah, the two question is, first, why we cannot control that, and my second question is why on the benchy, which I always thought was symmetrical, on the left it does that variable line width, and on the right it does not. So that's my two questions, and I have no idea how to answer them right now. Yes, Cura have a dynamic width compensation. You can't stop. It's on the slicing engine by itself. Yeah, but then I think it's I think they should allow us to control that, or at least activate or deactivate, because activating it means you really have no control. Like you have no idea, like when it's gonna extrude more, when it's gonna not extrude more, or you have no idea what's happening. And on the case that you don't have it, then you have full control. So I wish they could. I wish. Ooh, my voice. I wish they could allow us to activate or deactivate that. Oh, you know what? Maybe we can. I mean, we should. Variable. Maybe line width. Initial line width, wall layer line width, blah blah. Wall thickness, minimum, blah. Infill density. Yeah, they don't have a setting that is like enable or disable. Yeah, I don't know. I find it strange that because now we, I mean, it's good for printer going mainstream where you don't have to care about all of this. But I like to have control over my slicing, and the fact that I cannot control that makes me feel so strange. I mean, for us, we all have a decent amount of experience with 3D printing, right? And the fact that we cannot control the slicing, I don't know, it's a little bit frustrating. But I mean, from an industry perspective, then I completely understand. But what I don't understand is why that is not symmetrical. The benchy is symmetrical. You know what? Sometimes you have that issue depending on the way they slice it, like depending on how it's placed. So you know what? Let me do that. Let me move the benchy around. So let me spin it, and let me move it. Let me move it, and let me slice it again to see if it's still symmetrical or not. If it's not, then the benchy is not symmetrical, which is a discovery for me. Yeah, you see, it's still doing that strange thing on the side here. So next step, I mean, I'm not going to do that today, but next step is I'm going to bring benchy on Blender, and then I'm going to take the dimension of this side and this side. And if it's different, then it's a discovery for me. The benchy was not symmetrical. I mean, it's not symmetrical, okay, because it's written 3D benchy and because you have that writing here. But I mean, outside of this, it should be symmetrical, right? Oh, look at that. Even here, you see the features here and here are different. The left and right are different. You see? Check the left and right while I'm going layer by layer. You see, there is different. But that I guess it come from how I put my model. So let me. A fatal error has occurred in Cura. Please send us this crash report. Oh, it crashed again? You kidding me? Send report. Ah, okay. You know what? Let's just give up Cura 5.0 because it's not being my friend today. Let's switch topic. even though it's still in my mind, like why it's not symmetrical. Like all the slicer is doing that. Let me check this one. So is that different between left and right? No, it's the same. It's the same, right? Yeah, it's the same. Everywhere it's the same. It's not doing some strange stuff. How about this Kira? 4.13. 4.13. Yeah, it's the same. Everything is symmetrical. Yeah, I don't understand. But anyway, 5.0 has crashed again, so I'll just give up. Could be a model thing. Yeah, maybe. I cannot find anything that seems to say you can control it, just as you could not control before if it decided to print 2 lines when the model was 2.5 lines wide. You could control that. You could control the it would listen to it would follow the line width that you tell him. So if there is not enough space, then I do 2 or I do 3, or but I think that was controllable before. I'm awesome. I'm awesome. What happens if you rotate the benchy? Yeah, nothing happened. You already thought about it. Yeah, nothing happened. Blender benchy. Yeah, I will definitely put that benchy on Blender and verify that it is symmetrical. Does it look like that the other version of Cura? Is that the line width being messed with? Yeah, so the other, you see, this is the other Cura, and it doesn't have any issue. And you know what? We can print this much thicker. Let's put 0.5, for example. So if you put 0.5, yeah, it does the same. If you put 0.6, it does exactly the same. Yeah, it's exactly the same. I think it's the other slicer that somehow decide that the left one requires to change the line width and the right one doesn't somehow. So either the model is different, either the algorithm is dependent on where the benchy is on the plate or something, but we rotated it and then we moved it. Might be just a coincidence. I don't know. Poor Cura trying its best. Yeah, I don't know. My 5.0, to be honest, hasn't been very well for me. Prusa Slicer Alpha 2.5 has all the same stuff Cura has, and it won't crash. I mean, I've recently switched to Super Slicer, and it's been now 2 weeks that I'm using it, and I love it. I really love it. There is a couple of things that I don't know how to do, but I know how to do on Cura. But I guess it's just a learning process. When I slice it with 3 walls instead of 2, it looks better. Mark, you a few. I'm pretty sure we can make it look better, right? I'm just trying to understand, why it's not symmetrical. If it isn't broke, don't fix it. I hate it when Windows does an update when you've told it not to. Yeah. 5.0 so far has worked fine with me. Okay. Yeah, I did see. If you go on Reddit or if you go on Twitter, I did see a lot of people complaining about 5.0. When I say a lot, is compared to 4.0, for example, when 4.0 was released. But anyway, okay. So that's for the benchy stuff. Sorry, we couldn't close that topic, but and it's not even in the benchy hotline topic, but it's more of what's happening with slicer topic, I guess. But anyway, let's go to the wet filament stuff. I was thinking Cura 5.0, when you use 3 walls, it fills in the gap, so the line width is not changed. 2 walls cause the change. Yes. Hi, Francis. Thank you for coming. It's not I'm awesome anymore. So you have to read the thing below. We had some problem with the apostrophe. Okay, so let me open that that Reddit comment that we read last time. That was very interesting. Okay, so the topic here, we found a great topic to discuss. The idea of filament absorbing moisture and becoming wet is still being debated. Some claim that PLA cannot absorb moisture at all, while others dry PLA as soon as they unbox it. Here, a basic article on drying. Okay, let's take that article as well. Okay, so the wet filament myth needs to end. We read that last time, and I love that. I love that post, full of triggering sentences. Online, there is much talk of wet filament ruining prints. Most suggest that leaving filament out of a bag causes it to absorb colossal amount of moisture. Others goes as far as to say that even a Ziploc freezer bag isn't good enough. When it comes to both ABS and PLA, this is plain and simple fake news. While this is likely true for nylon, with nylons, it just doesn't hold up for traditional plastics. I have found the wet filament myth to be fake over 2 different machines run and completely different environment, cold, hot, humid, it literally doesn't matter. As an example, see today's print, an ABS part made from cheap Chinese eBay filament that has been unbagged for 2+ years. Yeah, every time the cheap stuff comes from China. Polymaker is a Chinese company. No, I did not bake it in the oven before printing. Ovens are for food, not filament. I just took it off the shelf and began to print. Measured several dimensions and was able to hold plus minus 0.006 inches, even on interior and exterior holes. Only post prep is cutting off the brim. Along with this, my threads came out perfect and screwed right on. I print with filament like this all the time and never bag or protect my filament. To add insult to injury to the myth, this was on the Anet A8 with enclosure, with other 1,000 hours of printing with a stock extruder, bed and frame. There are some safety updates. Okay, so clearly this particular user is, do not believe that PLA and ABS can absorb moisture, and all what filament manufacturers are saying is a myth. And his way of proving that is, I can print PLA and ABS without protecting them, and I have good result. Therefore, ABS and PLA cannot absorb moisture. So already we can see an issue with his reasoning, right? Reasoning. The action of thinking about something in a logical, yeah. So there is an issue with his reasoning. 0.006 inches is 0.15 millimeter. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah, I yeah. There's a big debate, right? Whether we should use imperial or SI units. I'm obviously into the SI units, but I can understand that if you grew up with a certain way of doing things, then it makes things obviously easier to use because you've been using it forever. I live in a dry climate, have never really been able to test this one from environmental conditions. Okay, so I'm interested in answers from people. After running a makerspace for years and going through 400 kg of materials, I promise you that PLA absolutely, definitely, 100% does become horribly brittle if left out for long during humid months. Okay. There is also, what we will have to discuss is the material absorbing moisture makes it brittle, because that's also that's also something that needs to be discussed, because I think a lot of people think that when the fact that the material absorbs moisture, the moisture will make the material brittle. And I think there is some discussion around that, because I don't think it's very correct. The easiest way to get me to not listen to what you're saying is to open with fake news statement. Okay, it's interesting to note that my anecdotal evidence is the exact opposite. Humid Maryland weather make my PLA into dry pasta sticks. The stuff kept in Ziploc with silica gel, printed very nicely. Thank you very much. Exact my experience, but in the Netherlands, filament turns to spaghetti after being left put too long. Okay, so again, all of these, they all have a little bit of the same thinking issue. It's not because something happened in your home with one filament with your printer that it becomes the rule, like it becomes how it is in 3D printing. So for example, this guy don't have issue with moisture, so nobody has issue with moisture, or this guy has issue with PLA with moisture, so all PLA will have issue with moisture or something like this. So I think there's some issue in the reasoning from that post. But let's continue a little bit more. Are you a chemist or blah blah blah? Okay. PETG, not a notably hydroscopic filament. Blah blah. So that's the necessity of drying hydroscopic plastic is well-known fact among injection molding firms. But hey, what do they know? Everyone knows manufacturing. Okay. So overall, I think people were not too much in line with what he was saying. It's not a myth, and it's 100% dependent on the environment. One thing you didn't mention is where you are located. The period of anecdote, not data, blah, blah, blah. The plural of anecdote is anecdotes, not data. An argument from personal experience is not worth much. Yeah, so that's what we were talking about. So I'm interested because first when people on Discord started that topic, I was surprised. I was surprised that there is some people that don't think PLA would absorb moisture, and I'm still skeptical. I still think that 99.9% of people knows that polymers absorb moisture, and that's a problem. So there is a little bit more than 20 people in the chat. So from your perspective, do you think, is there anyone in the chat that thinks that PLA does not absorb moisture, like does not need to be protected, and does not, that maybe not as extreme as this guy, but kind of things similar, like people drying their PLA, don't need to dry their PLA or something? Is there anyone in the chat that think this way? Okay, let me catch up a little bit. I live in a dry. Okay, my Polymaker PLA Pro has light stringing finish like fine hair when I don't dry the filament while sitting out in 60% relative humidity, but I haven't tested layer adhesion or stress changing. There's drying the filament. There's dried filament. Okay, so when I don't dry the filament. Okay, so if you dry the filament, then you solve that. Okay. Metrics easier to work with. Yeah, I guess it depends. You grew up with what type of units. UAV Hero. However, if I dry the filament, same G code does not have the same stringing attributes. Push from Ripcord and the 3D Gloop guy did a live stream a little while ago, and the Gloop guy says while PLA does absorb moisture, drying it damages it and breaks down the plastic. Yes, we're going to talk about that. One Raz, I know it does suck up moisture. Ask him why PLA pops and snaps when printing. Moisture is the reason. That was 3 years ago, so most likely he may have changed his mind since then. Gloop guys say, you are best to store it properly and use it before it absorbs moisture. Yes, that's correct. Could the base PLA and the additive be affected by moisture differently? So cheap Chinese PLA, there's nice Chinese PLA, could behave different. Could the base PLA and the additive be affected by moisture differently? Yes, depending on your PLA formula, it will absorb more or less moisture, and it will also behave differently, because there's another thing. If you have a PLA formula that has absorbed, let's say, 1% moisture, and then a different PLA formula that has absorbed 2% moisture, okay, then depending on the formula, the 1% moisture would print worse than the 2% one, because it depends on a lot more things than just the water intake. My Tech Fund, put the PLA in water for a few days. It will be broken in several parts, will become very brittle. Same I noticed with my old PLA filament on open air. Snap easily, but printing okay. Okay, that's good to know. We're going to talk about that relationship between moisture and brittleness, because I think it has to be explained properly. Get a food dehydrator. I have never had problem with moist PLA, but I live in Arizona. So I guess your meaning is that in Arizona is dry, I guess. Humidity in Arizona, 21%. Okay. Arizona average relative humidity 38.5% and 32.5 dew point. Okay. Well, it's quite low actually. It's quite dry where you are then. Yeah, that might be the reason. In my experience, we do not dry PLA and it is not protected. Tom Sanladerer, I can never pronounce his name, had a great video where he submerged filament underwater for weeks at a time. Okay, so let's watch that video. So what was the result after he put that filament? Because there's a big difference between, a lot of people think that if you put your filament in water, is the same as leaving it in the air for a long time. But there is a big difference between water absorption when you have liquid water and water absorption when you have gas water. It's very different. Because I know a lot of people think, okay, just throw it in water, and then that's going to be the same as leaving it outside for a long time, because somehow there's more water. So Thompson Alert, right? Thompson Alert, PLA moisture. So what does he has to say about it? Do you really need to dry your filament? Okay, perfect video. Thank you, Loyal, for sharing.
I told you, I don't know anything. Not good enough. No. Are you going to bubble out yet? Never. Yeah, that's basically what I've been up to the last week, trying to find out how much and how quickly filament absorbs water and what the results of that are. Well, there's no question that filaments like PA, nylons, as well as PVA absolutely need to be kept in a moisture-controlled storage solution. With more common stuff like PLA or PTG, it's not that clear. Sure, PTG does absorb some moisture and you'll get some extra stringing, but how bad could it be? And is PLA just generally fine to be kept out in the open? And that's some of the things that I tried to find out by exposing filaments to different grades of humidity and running some tests. And not everything went exactly as expected. But what you can definitely expect is a message from today's sponsor, Open Builds. Open Builds, see, I tell myself a lot of open filament up on the shelves here. And
so one thing I want to clarify before we continue the video is all polymers absorb moisture, right? It's a thing. It's, if there is anyone that don't believe that, let me know, and then I can explain more. But his video is not about whether polymers absorb moisture or not. His video is about, do we have to care if some filament absorb moisture? Because they all absorb moisture, but maybe even though PLA absorb moisture, it doesn't matter for our application. So I just want to clarify that. It's the topic here is not whether a polymer absorbs moisture or not. And hopefully that's not the topic. I hope everyone agree with that. And if there's anyone that doesn't agree, then we will switch that topic first to whether a filament absorbs moisture or not. But if you agree with that, then we go to the next topic, which is there some filament that we need to not care about whether it absorbs moisture or not? Because even if it absorbs moisture, then it doesn't change the processing. I live in desert area. PLA does absorb moisture even at 15% humidity. Yes, Robert, like we said, it absorbs moisture. That's 100% sure. And again, if there's anyone that disagree with that, let me know. Now the question is, do we need to care? Like, does that change anything for your printing? Like, doesn't change anything for our application, which is 3D printing. Does that change the processability of PLA? My Tech Fund, about PLA, depend where do you live. Most of them I store on open air. If I know that I will use it in the next 3 to 4 months, PTG nylon, always in resealable vacuum bag. Yeah. Again, theoretically, we usually recommend to always put them in our resealable bag. But that's what we are trying to answer today. Is there some filament that you don't have to care about moisture? I have never dried PLA and it sits unprotected on a shelf, but when I open them, I use them so it doesn't sit for months. Also live in social, so low humidity. I think it depends on location and time. Yeah. When so basically, when people say I don't store it in, I just store it on the shelf without protected. What they mean is I store it at the average humidity and the average temperature of where I live. That's what they mean. So because it doesn't matter, it doesn't make sense if everyone say I leave it in the air. What they mean is I leave it to the humidity and temperature of where I live, and everyone are different. So part of the issue is that people are comparing different PLA formula when talking about moisture. Yes, it's important to compare apple to apple. For example, Polylight PLA and Polyterra PLA are completely two different formulas, and if you check the moisture curve on the TDS, they are also different. And Silk PLA is different. Galaxy and Sparkles are similar to our regular PLA, but they are a little bit different. Polymax PLA is different. PLA Pro is different. Lightweight PLA is different. All the PLA are different. Hello, party people. Hi, Zombie. I thought you were on vacation. Are you listening to my voice while laying down on the beach? Rover, current 104 degree Fahrenheit, degree C, precipitation, blah, blah. Okay, very true. Elevation, barometric pressure also play a role in it. Yes, Chris Basement also left filaments out in his basement for months at a time and weighted it and printed with it. Yeah, it would be great if there is if the printer have some kind of a moisture tester, I don't know, let's say a very smart printer. You load the filament and then it takes it extrudes a small sample and then it tests the moisture and then it kind of adjusts the temperature depending on the moisture or something. But anyway, Joe Descent, relative humidity is a percentage of how much water there can be in the air at the given temperature. So 40% RH at 30 degrees might be more water per centimeter cube, I guess, than 50 at... so that's why, Joe Descent, in the industry, we only refer to dew point. We don't really refer to relative humidity. UAV Hero, if drying filament with heat damage the polymer, then using silica beads in storage to dry the filament is better. Yes. So let's go in that topic a little bit. when you dry the filament, so we were talking about brittleness, so let's talk about it now. When a filament absorbs moisture, okay, you have your filament, and then you will have the water molecule that's going to get stuck to your polymaker backbone, right? With the fact that the water molecules are dipole, and then we'll get that magnetic stick to the polymers, right? Very, very simply put. And then this itself will make the filament less brittle. Okay, and I think that's very, very important to understand that. If a filament absorbs moisture, it will be less brittle. And the explanation is that the water molecule are going to create more space between the different polymers. It will push polymers apart, and that will create more movement between polymers and will make the filament less brittle because they have more movement. It lowers the TG of the material. Okay, I send a couple of links on Discord if you want to learn more about that, about like the chemical understanding behind that. However, why do we feel that it becomes brittle? Because that's a fact. A fact is that people notice that if they leave PLA for too long, then it becomes brittle. It's not directly because it has moisture inside. The answer to that is dipole. Okay, dipole. I didn't know how to pronounce that. The answer to that is hydrolysis. What's going to happen is these water molecules that are inside your filament are going to react with your polymer chain, and is going to break it. It's going to break the carbon backbone of your polymers. So it will make a long chain. It will break it somewhere, so it will make smaller chain. And a lower molecular weight polymer, so like a shorter chain, lower molecular weight, will make the material more brittle. Okay, so when it absorbs moisture, you have something that is called aging. Aging means it will slowly break down the material, and the water help with the breaking down of the material. And there's two things that help: the moisture, and the heat, the UV as well, but let's put that aside for now. So the heat and the water, and these two are the factors that will catalyze. Yeah. Catalyze. So these two will catalyze the reaction, the aging reaction. So when people are saying, when 3D Group are saying don't dry your filament, or they are not saying don't dry, but they are saying prevent it from absorbing moisture, like don't leave it and then think that you can just dry it before printing. What they're saying is avoid that aging process. And the fact that you leave your PLA there and then it absorbs moisture and then you dry it, during the drying process, you are mixing a high moisture content with a heat, and that's going to completely mess up your filament, right? Because you are going to accelerate the aging process by drying it. So hopefully that makes sense. Let me know if you understand, and if it makes sense, and if you agree. Maybe there is some part that I'm wrong, but that's so far my understanding. Wait, I'm going to change my mind so we can fight in the chat. Come on, loyal PRINTBUSTER. Zombie, silica lowers the RH but does not remove moisture dry filament. I'm watching the sunset right now. Enjoy, Zombie, enjoy. So from what Zombie said, because there is a question before on whether it's better to dry the filament with heat or whether it's better to dry the filament with silica gel. The straight answer is it's better to dry the filament with silica gel. However, it is extremely difficult to dry filament with silica gel. Why? Because to dry a filament, you basically need two things. The first thing is you need a moisture gradient between the filament and the outside media. So let's say it's air. Okay, so the air, if the air is very, very dry, then the water will naturally try to find an equilibrium between the air and the filament. So if you keep the air very, very dry, then it will naturally pull the moisture out of the filament. Okay, so if you use hot air blower, for example, then you will keep the surface very, very dry. And that's for me the best technology of drying filament is air blower, and that's what they use in the injection molding industry. I think Mytechfun is from the injection molding industry, so he can confirm that. They usually use big hopper, and then they use hot air that is basically going through the pallet, and then the air is dried again, going through a sleeve, and then going back inside. And that's how they dry. They keep the air dry. The second is temperature. You need to give enough energy to that filament, to that material, in order to allow the water molecule to move around and reach the surface and then exit. Okay, so that's the two things that you need. So yes, you could use silica gel. Like if you put a bunch of silica gel and then it completely dry the outside, then you will extremely slowly, depending on the temperature, draw the water out. However, there might be, I don't know the exact data, but there might be a point where the equilibrium force, like the gradient force of pulling out the material, the water, is not great enough compared to how the water is stuck to the polymer. You need to add more energy to draw that water molecule out. So hopefully that answered the question in a certain level of detail. Please ask the question if that's not understood. You can use cat litter to absorb moisture. Dipole, it is very polar in charge. The water molecule looks like a Mickey Mouse head. Yes, yeah, that's if I remember well, the oxygen. So you have oxygen and two hydrogen, and the oxygen will draw, because they share electron, in the covalent bond, and then the oxygen is going to attract electron. No, the hydrogen will attract electron. Let me think. Hey, I don't remember. The oxygen, I think the oxygen will draw the electron more than the hydrogen. Let me water dipole. Let me confirm that. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So the oxygen will attract the sharing electron between hydrogen and oxygen more than the hydrogen. So it will make the area around the oxygen atom more negative than the hydrogen atoms. So now we are going into my classes stuff, which I used French at that time. So I might not have all the vocabulary for that. But yes, that's what I mean by dipole. Does Polymaker plan to make a filament dryer? You should go on our Discord. I think you are on the Discord. So you should know the answer to that. Oh, Zombie, yeah, perfect answer, Zombie. Mytechfun, is this chain break process reversible? Drying will make it again non-brittle filament. Shame on me, I should test this already. No, it's not reversible, Mytechfun. If aging is not reversible, degradation of the filament is not reversible. But that's something you can test. That's actually a very good point. If you dry a filament, does that make it less brittle? Theoretically, with what I said, if my theory is correct, then it should not, right? Like if it's brittle before drying, it will be brittle after drying. Yeah, that's a good point. That can be tested. Lost in Tech did a couple of video on drying. Okay, let's put that here. Lost in Tech drying. But we have another video to watch before that. Let's push vase mode to the limit drying. I know the quantity printing belt tension, blah blah vacuum. Blah, blah. Oh yeah, by the way, if you want, this is another great a great video about the difference between sucking water out and heating up the filament at the same time. Like, yeah, this video we can watch also. Sorry, I cannot find anything about Lost in Tech drying filament. My Tech Fan, as far as I know, drying have two stages: heat force the moisture to surface of material, then need dry environment air to evaporate from surface. For this, dry silicate gel helps a lot. Yes, My Tech Fan, you're right. That's a short way of explaining. Yes, exactly. The best dryer use a heater and blower, and the silica area absorb that moisture. Yes, I was going to build one, but I wait for the poly dry. Thank you, Zombie. Have you tried clay cut liter? Well, I guess it's you can use a rover. You can use any hydrophilic polymers, right? Hydrophilic, phobic is no philic, right? Philic is the one that attracts water. I like the recharge. Oh, it's getting hot suddenly. Do I have problem with my aircon or what? Let me put it back. Or is it just the the processing of PRINTBUSTERS that heat up my body? Mark, if filament degradation is not reversible, the recycled PLA is a bad idea. Yeah, of course. It would be older to start with and contain filament of different ages. Yeah, definitely, Mark UFU. And that's the main issue of recycled PLA or recycled polymer as a whole. That's the main issue. They cannot maintain their mechanical property because the more you process them and the more you break them down. So yes, exactly, Mark UFU. One Rust. So they changed the basic formula so it doesn't pop and spit when printing wet filament. So they changed the basic formula. So One Rust, did you say something before that, or did I miss the context? So they changed the basic formula so it doesn't. Yeah, I mean you can modify your formula so that it absorbs less moisture, or you can change the formula so that even if it absorbs moisture, it will affect the process less. So yes, you can play on the formula to do that. Zombie, the filament dryer talk was a long time ago, but if anything new comes in, it will be there. Yeah, so you have to go in the new product. Actually, I'm thinking whether it should require a channel with specific people in that channel, because it's a whole new topic, and we may have some update about it. Hydrophobic. Oh, it's hydrophobic? I thought it was hydrophilic. What's the difference? Hydrophilic is having a tendency to mix with, dissolve. Oh, and then hydrophobic, tending to repel, fail to mix with water, suffering. Oh no, so that was correct, right? You need to use hydrophilic polymers in order to dry your filament. Yeah, so you have more affinity with water. Hydrophilic means more affinity with water. Hydrophobic means less affinity. So if you want to dry your filament, then you have to put a polymer that is hydrophilic, right? Polymer. Yeah, and by the way, for those, because I see a lot of hydroscopic. It's not hydroscopic, it's hygroscopic. it's not the water, it's not the the hydro from water. Just because I've seen even at Ponymaker sometimes when we have new people, they tend to say hydroscopic. I started 3D printing 3 weeks ago, so I don't feel bad about having missed this conversation. Yeah, don't worry. You can use the search. You can use the search features of Discord. We had a long discussion, and we even had some people rendering ideas, and basically you can see the actual product on Discord. UAV Hero. Polymaker, curious to do a destructive test between two same prints, one printed and exposed, and one full sealed in Cerakoti. What is Cerakoti finish? Cerakoti is specialist coating that can be applied to wood, polymers, metal, and plastic that is composed of polymer ceramic compound. Okay. The Cerakoti sealed print should be stronger over time there's exposed. Yeah, definitely. If you protect polymers from aging, then they will become better than the same polymer but that has suffered aging. Okay, so let's go back to that video.
There, but I tell myself that the dehumidifier will keep things in check and I shouldn't worry about it too much. But while I feel like, PLA is mostly fine and maybe gets a bit more brittle after a while, PETG does start to show just a bit more stringing than the same stuff when printed completely new. And styrene-based filaments, like ABS or ASA, I think they do smell a bit more than if they were completely dry. So that's the three things that you might start to notice with wet filaments. Changes in mechanical properties with PLA. I don't know if there's something chemical happening, but for example, parts printed with wet PETG are supposed to be less strong. What's happening here is that as the water absorbed into the filament rapidly boils off as it gets heated inside the hot end, that motion of the steam actually tears apart the polymer chains that give a plastic its strength and durability. So even though your parts might look fine, because the polymer itself would be altered, they might perform very differently than what you'd expect.
I think he's talking about hydrolysis. So we just talked about hydrolysis, right? And we were saying that it depends on moisture and heat. So you can understand that during the processing of your filament in your 3D printer, then you also have that issue because you basically heat up the filament to 200 plus degree, plus that moisture. So you create you catalyze that hydrolysis.
That's actually a very similar reason why resin prints are often brittle. The cured parts that you print with resins have shorter polymer chains because optimizing a resin for longer chains would make the resin harder to print with. Anyway, the second thing you might see is stringing. Again, as the moisture
the air cure Cerakoti also has tolerance of okay. Yeah, UAV Hero, I don't know what Cerakoti was, but now I kind of have an idea. That Craft 73. So is printed PLA less hygroscopic than before it is printed, or are they the same? They are the same. They are exactly the same. The tendency of absorbing moisture of the filament will be the same as the tendency of absorbing moisture of the printed part.
Pulls off, it creates little puffs of steam, and those push the molten filament around, and in a hot end, there's really only one way out, and that is out of the nozzle.
Sorry, I didn't follow.
Anyway, the second thing you might see is stringing. Again, as the moisture boils off, it creates little puffs of steam, and those push the molten filament around, and in a hot end, there's really only one way out, and that is out of the nozzle. You overall just get less precise control over the filament flow. And the third thing, increased amounts of...
I think, I'm not sure he explained it very well about, why you have stringing. What he's saying is the fact that there is bubble gas is pushing the filament out and somehow creating strings. I don't think that's that explained very well. I think the stringing come from the fact that the moisture in the filament makes the filament stick to itself more. how should I explain that better? So my thinking is that the polymers are, there is the secondary bond, right? Do you remember we talked about a long time ago now? We talked about primary bond, so which is the backbone of the polymer, and secondary bond, which is the hydrogen bond between polymers. So you have the polymers, and then the polymer itself has primary bond, okay? And when you break down that primary bond, that's degradation, that's non-reversible. But each polymer, between them, they also have what we call secondary bond. Like there are also dipoles on each of the polymers, and then they kind of stuck together. But that's sometimes, if you force them, then, they move, then they break that secondary bond, and then they recreate secondary bond. Okay, so that's how the polymer behave. So that's reversible. Okay, you can break secondary bond, but you can recreate them. So when you have, my thinking is when you have water inside, you're basically pulling polymers apart, and I think that's creating more movement in the polymers. That's lowering the TG. That's making the polymers more like less viscous, more sticky. I don't know exactly how to explain that, but that moisture is going to make that thing very sticky. And my guess is when you're printing, that stickiness is going to create that filament. We talked about stringing before, right? We talked about the actual root cause of stringing being at the end of the layer. If you don't cut the polymer properly, then you will pull and then you will stretch the polymer from one island to the other island. Okay, and that's that polymer stretching. It's like gum. If you heat up the gum, then the gum will have more free movement. The polymers in the gum will have more free movement, so you will be able to stretch it more. Okay, well, that's actually the perfect example. We all chew gums, right? And if the gum is hot, then you can pull it apart very easily. There is enough movement between the polymers to break the bond and recreate the bond. But in polymers, it's the same. If there is enough movement between the polymers, which the moisture allows, then you will also be able to stretch the polymers more. Well, I haven't thought about this, but I think that's the perfect example. So hopefully that makes it much more clear on why moisture has stringing issue. So think about chewing gum. Think about the gum that you higher the temperature, you higher the free movement between polymers, and in 3D printing, the moisture will also higher the free movement in polymers. So at least that's my theory around this. Good question. Does it matter how wet a printed part is? Yes, it matters. Think about an extreme, like think about nylon. Nylon, depending on whether it's dry or whether it's wet, will matter a lot on the mechanical property.
One way out, and that is out of the nozzle. You overall just get less precise control over the filament flow. And the third thing, increased amounts of smell. And this one is hard to measure, but thankfully a couple of studies have already looked into this. What we can notice is an odor, but what we can measure is particulate emissions from a print. As the filament moisture content or the hot end temperature goes up, the emissions of fine and ultrafine particles drastically increase, easily up to a point where it's not quite healthy anymore to be in the same room with a printer. So yes, this was something that I did notice, I think, but I didn't quantify for these tests. I do have 2 particle sensors, so this might be something to look into for next time.
Okay, so he said 3 things that the moisture is doing to your part. Thing number 1, lowering the mechanical properties. So we explained that with hydrolysis. Thing number 2, it's increasing the amount of artifacts on your print, stringing or blobs or something like this, stringing, and we explained that with the chewing gum theory, right? And thing number 3 is increasing the amount of VOC. So where does that come from? Because here is PRINTBUSTERS, right? It's not a YouTube video, where we explain things at a very superficial level, right? I'm just joking. But Well, I'm not joking in a way that we want to go deep, right? We want to understand why. So why moisture filaments would create more VOC? My hypothesis is also hydrolysis. What is VOC? VOC is, like, for example, why our ABS, if you notice, why our ABS smell much less than other ABS? Did you ever think, did you experience that first? And did you ever try to think about why? And that's the fact, a lot of people are asking why polymaker, what's the difference between polymaker filament and other filament? My answer is always the same. We, as a company, spend a lot of time understanding the 3D printing process. And the fact that we understand the 3D printing process well makes us make good filament. That's the main difference between polymaker filament and other filament, is the time we spend at understanding the process. For example, like I said, why our ABS smell less? Because we think we understood why ABS smell. And by understanding that, then you can create an ABS that doesn't smell or smell much less. Chew gum. There's much easier to swallow if you don't chew them first. Does putting filament in the sun to dry out hurts the filament by sun rays? Yes, one rays. Definitely. We put UV out of the equation, but UV is also a different way to add energy to your polymers instead of heat. So yeah, it's not a good idea to dry it on the sun. So it's not Fabrice in the ABS. Sorry, I guess that was a joke, but the fact that I don't have the reference makes it a strange joke. Febreze. Oh, it's a kind of air freshener. Okay, I understand now. No, it's not. So my theory, or the polymaker theory, on why ABS is smell is because the amount of monomers in the ABS is different from an ABS to another one. So the VOC comes from the part of the plastic that are small enough to be volatile. For example, monomers. So when you do a polymer, you have a bunch of monomers and then you polymerize them, right? And then when you the problem is, even after polymerization, you still have a certain amount of monomers, and you still have a repartition of very short chain, very long chain, and the middle chain. And that's what we call the molecular weight, right, of the material. And for a high quality polymer, the molecular weight repartition will be very, very thin, okay? Like, for example, we use NatureWorks because their PLA, one of the reasons is their PLA has, a very, let's say you have a curve, right? And then you have the molecular weight on the x-axis and the number of polymers on the y-axis, then it will look like this, right? And then if you have a flat curve, it means you have a bunch of different molecular weight. If you have a very thin, like a spike in the middle, then you have a very narrow molecular weight. And then, so when you polymerize, if you still have a lot of monomers or maybe short chain, then you will smell a lot, because during the melting process, those monomers will just become volatile, and that's the smell. At least that's the theory. The ABS we are making has reduced the amount of monomers because of the way the ABS is polymerized. Let's say maybe a higher quality of polymerizing the material so that it doesn't have a big amount of monomers. Very, very simplistically put. So my guess is moistured filament will, because of the hydrolysis, will create even more, will break down the chain, and then will create even more small stuff in the filament, small chain, and these will be more volatile. So the more small tuff, the more volatile. So maybe that's the reason why the moisture will create more volatile, more VOCs. Does that make sense? All right, going back on vacation. Enjoy, Zombie. Enjoy your vacation, and thank you for joining during your vacation. I thought the S in the ABS stand for smell. Just remove the S and it doesn't smell anymore. Oh yes, we've never thought about this. We should release Polylite AB. What did Rover say? I think I would put it, take 6 to 3 months, see Fun King's channel. He did a few years ago. S is sulfur on the periodic table. You might be onto something there. Non-fam, non-fam, dropping the real meaning of ABS. Okay, let's continue that video. But we just explained the 3 things that he mentioned, right?
So what exactly did I test? Well, the first question was, how can I quantify how much moisture is being absorbed and how much of a difference that makes? So the first one should be fairly easy.
AB.
Grab a scale that weighs down to 10 milligrams and just weigh the filament samples fresh and after having some time to soak up some moisture. So I did that. For these tests...
Well, I wish he would use, the actual moisture. I don't think it's that expensive, the machine, to test moisture on the filament, but that would be way more accurate than weighting the filament. But yeah, I guess it depends. Especially for PLA that doesn't absorb that much moisture.
I'm using all Prusa parts. That is a Prusa Mark III and Prusa slicer, which also has built-in factory-tuned profiles for the Prusa Mint that I'll be using. I could have saved a whole lot of print time by using the boron, which is covered up by the testing jig. But with the boron, I would have never known whether what we're seeing is my profiles doing some weird stuff, or the material itself behaving in a way that is different for a dry or wet material. So I roughly measured out 15-meter long samples of Prusa Mint PLA, PTG, and ASA, enough to print my samples and then a bit extra. And they went in a couple different spots. The first set stayed right here in the studio with no enclosure or anything. This room is relatively cool. It's around 18 to 20 degrees Celsius, but there is a dehumidifier running that's set to 50% relative humidity. So fairly good conditions to store filament in, I think. Of course, it is still better to store it in the original bag with some desiccant in there, which I also did with the remainder of the spools, and then used those to print some samples with what is 100% fresh.
Do you know the reason why we put desiccant in the bag? There is 2 reasons. Reason number 1, which I think everyone knows, is when you open the bag and then you use your filament, you put back the filament inside and then you reseal, then there is some moisture that went inside. So the desiccant bag helped to remove that moisture that went inside when you opened it. Reason number 2, which is more important for us as manufacturers, is the moisture will still go through the bag during storage. And the idea is that the desiccant bag inside needs to absorb moisture faster than it has time to go through the nylon bag. And that's why it's very important to have that desiccant bag in our inventory, in our warehouse, or during shipping, etc. Because even if you use a nylon bag, the moisture will still go through. But it's just a question of whether your silica gel can absorb that moisture faster than it has time to go through. And that's the part which I think very few people know about.
Filament. But the next set of filament samples went outside. It was fairly cold and foggy these days, a bit below freezing a couple of nights. So this should be a good portion of humidity that the filament is getting. But just to make sure we're also capturing the extreme end of the scale, I also dumped some samples into a bucket of tap water. Like, that's where the intro came from. So they were actually completely submerged, and I just let them sit at room temperature. Short of heating up the water or pressurizing it like in a pressure cooker, I don't think there's a way that these samples would be absorbing any more humidity than like this. So I labeled all the filament samples. I let them sit for 7 full days and then came back.
Oh, Jonathan, not at all. Not at all.
And this is where stuff started going wrong. because I absolutely could not measure any weight gain at all. And some of the samples look to even have lost weight according to the scale.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So this scale supposedly has a 10 milligram resolution at up to 500 grams of weight. It doesn't, not even close. Turns out,
Rather, would a thicker millimeter wall bag reduce the amount of humidity getting to the filament? Yes, the thicker the bag, and the longer it will take for the filament to penetrate the bag.
the best it does is 50 milligrams, and usually more around 100. So with a sample weight of around 50 grams, that is 1 or 2% of weight difference instead of the advertised 0.2%. And it's just not enough to discern wet from dry
you need to
filament.
get a moisture
Nylon
tester.
can absorb as much
Moisture
as
tester.
10% water by weight, but typical absorption rates of, for example, ASA are more around 1%. So there's no chance I could have measured anything here at all. Oh well. What followed was a full week of printing and reprinting parts. Some of the test plates had a part come loose, and I was really starting to worry that the 15 meter filament samples weren't going to be enough, but in the end, it barely worked out.
Oh wait, so at the end we don't know the moisture content. Also, he still went ahead with the testing, but we have no ideas about the moisture content.
These plates, I printed each of the parts in sequence so that they actually get printed one after the other. Octolabs really doesn't seem to get along with their print mode though. So we've got, of course, a 3D benchy for each of the materials and wetness states. Wow, these 3D benches aren't even.
I'm sure Mylar bags would work better, but I'm sure more
Yeah,
expensive.
they are.
We
I
are
also
already
printed my
using
Philippine
an
bend
aluminum
test,
bag,
printed
ULD
flat
Hero.
laying down.
All our materials except PLA and ABS, I think, are using aluminum bags. So we are already doing that. Something for Polymaker to consider. Yeah, we are already. We are already. Actually, if you check the video from CNC Kitchen. I think one of his latest video. I think our spools one was on the thumbnail, but I don't remember where's that video. Hey, I don't remember. Oh, I think there's this one.
Why are there
this one. So this is our spool.
some 3D printing material?
You can see the Polymaker logo here with the aluminum bag. So most of our spools come in aluminum bag. Just the PLA and ABS, I think, comes in maybe ASA, I don't remember, comes in nylon bag.
And also the IZOD impact samples, one standing up and one laying down flat as well, to see whether layer adhesion or layer strength.
Yeah,
would suffer
PLA
more.
has nylon bag.
These were all done with the Prusa Slicer 0.2 millimeter speed profile, so they all do use infill and they're not noticing. First, stringing, as expected, does increase the more moisture we put into the filaments, but differently for each material. PLA doesn't seem to be that affected, but you can see just a little bit more string.
Yeah, but then I don't think the video is very useful then, because I thought it would be a little bit more scientific, like a little bit more, relationship between moisture and, artifacts on the model, etc. But now it's a relationship between storage condition and what's happening to the filament. I mean, it's not bad, but it's not really helping that much. Yeah, this one, we won't watch it today, but I can share it with you here. It's also a very interesting video about the different way of drying filament. I think this video helps you understand also a little bit more on the actual drying process. I got ASA in silver bag. Oh, okay. Nathan, you know more than me our product. I don't remember. I think it's PLA and ABS that are using nylon bag. All the rest are using aluminum bag. So yeah, you just clarify for ASA. So ASA is also aluminum bag. Okay, so there's no much conclusion here, but I will summarize a little bit. First, all polymers absorb moisture, and I haven't seen anyone in the chat disagreeing with that, so I guess we all agree with that. All polymers absorb moisture. Second, we all understand now why moisture is bad for 3D printing. Hydrolysis, more free movement for the polymers. So that's the two main thing that, and then the hydrolysis will have sub effect, right? Like mechanical issues, VOCs. So a lot of things are created because of the hydrolysis, and the free movement, artifacts on your print, like the stringing. So that's understood. Okay, so that's number two. All polymers absorb moisture, and we understand why moisture are bad for 3D printing. However, number three, which I hope that video would show us, but it's kind of showing a little bit, the higher the moisture, and so we all agree that the higher the moisture, the more you will have this 3D printing problem. Like stringing, the higher the moisture, the more stringing you're going to have. Now, I think what we need to test is if a filament reach saturation, which I think the video should have been that. The video should have been about all filaments, like different filaments, reaching moisture saturation, and check how it affects the printing. Because if moisture saturation have issues with 3D printing, then you need to store your filament. If it does not, then you don't need to store your filament. That's the first question. Question number two is how to reach that saturation point. For example, if PLA at I don't know, 30-degree dew point and no UV sunlight or something like this, will reach saturation after 2 years, then we can assume that a PLA don't need storage in that environment, or it needs to be stored. I mean, it's not about not storing or storing. I mean, in any case, you have to put your filament somewhere. It's about the environment's condition that would define how long it takes to reach saturation. You know what I mean? So on one point, is saturation bad for the filament? Like, is saturated filament printing bad? That's question number one. And my guess is all polymers, if they reach saturation, they will print bad. You can lower the print temperature. You can do some stuff to minimize that issue. But I do think that every filament, if they reach saturation, then they will have printing issue. Question number two, what are the relationship between storage condition and the time it takes to reach saturation? Like I've seen some people living in I don't remember, but like Arizona, for example, that's 30% relative humidity, and I don't know, maybe 25, 27 degree Celsius average temperature. With that dew point, how long would it take for the filament to reach saturation? Okay, and depending on that time, yes or no, you need extra care for your filament, like aluminum bag or nylon bag, or lowering the dew point of your environment. And I guess nobody has answered that yet. So another part where PRINTBUSTER needs to do some work, because nobody has done that work before. Or do they? Is there any video that we can watch that has done that work? That two question. Because PRINTBUSTERs are very good at finding out, finding some logic and then finding out the right questions. But PRINTBUSTERs is still lacking in resources to have a good experimentation. So I need to have more stuff around here, and we need to build a better community that can help with all of these experiments, so that we can start, pushing out all our white papers to the public. Yeah, I have my internet just cut off, but should be back now. Is it back? Yeah, should be back now. Just lost audio and video. Yeah, sorry. It should be back now. Yeah, should be back now. Okay, so there's one more thing that I want you to have a look together. Is this one, and then I think we would be good. We shouldn't spend too much time boiling our brain on 3D printing. Otherwise it's gonna overclock. Okay, so let's check out what they have to say about this. So these are where is that from? What are they doing? Okay, just some article in general. Okay, why drying is important. Any experiment that can attest most thermoplastic material tend to absorb moisture. Well, even like can attest that most thermoplastic materials tend to absorb moisture. I mean, I think all thermoplastic materials in 3D printing absorb moisture, not most. For materials, this can affect the printing process, especially since this material can become significantly wet in a matter of days, if not hours. Yeah, depending on condition, right? One material that is specifically prone to absorbing moisture is nylon. However, other materials such as PET, polycarbonate, and high-temperature material also tend to suffer from this issue. Hissing and popping sound are first telltale sign that one is printing with wet filament. This happens because the water absorbed by the plastic is very quickly vaporized by the heated nozzle, and as the rapid change and consistent material external, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so one question here I won't answer today, but maybe something to make you think about. I have another question. Look before you lost connection. Oh, sorry. Sorry, I cannot see your question. UAV hero. I read all the chat. Maybe your question didn't go through. So if you don't mind asking again. So here's the question. Why? They talk about the water absorbed very, very quickly vaporized. Why does it vaporize? Because the temperature is above 100 degrees C, right? If it's above 100 degrees C, then the water will go from liquid to vapor, gas, right? Now here's the question. Why, when you print with moist filament, if you lower the temperature, you have less bubble? And in some cases, like polysmooth, for example, if you print low enough, like 180 degrees, 185, you even have no moisture issue anymore. Why? Because it's still above 100 degrees. So the water is still vaporized, but there is no bubble. So why, if you increase the temperature, then you have more bubble, more hissing, more popping. And if you decrease the temperature, it's still way above 100 degrees, but you have less pops, less sound, less bubble. Why? Is there anyone that can answer that? This inconsistent material extrusion will have several visible effects on your print. Stringing and oozing in the prints will be more pronounced. Added pressure in the hot end result in less control over the amount of extruded material. The strength of the print, blah, 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 negatively, blah, blah, weather change to steam. Lots of void bubbles will be trapped inside the filament and ultimately the print, reducing layer adhesion. Okay. The effect of moisture on FFF print. The image below shows the effect of different moisture level on the print quality of two materials, one side-by-side PS66 copolymer and other CF polymer, blah, blah. Okay, so we can see. Okay, so here's what I want you to see, like the actual moisture content and the artifacts. Okay, so we can clearly see, the relationship. But this relationship depends on the temperature. Okay, and they don't mention the temperature. Because if I do the same thing with the 0.5%, 0.75%, etc., but at a lower temperature, then I will have a different result. And if I do at a higher temperature, then I will also have a different result. So temperature is very important. But again, is there anyone that can answer that? UAV Hero. Then the real question is, what is a filament full saturation level? 2% weight heavier over dry weight for PLA? Oh, you mean what is saturation level? The real question is, what is the filament full saturation level? Yeah, that's a good question. My meaning of saturation level was if you leave the filament at 25 degree at 100% relative humidity, and then the saturation point would be when the amount of moisture doesn't increase in a consequent 7 days. That's how we define it more or less in our TDS. So you can see the curve. The moisture curve will go like this, and then you will reach a semtop, and in a semtop. How do you pronounce that? Asymptote. So when you do that, you will reach an asymptote. So that's my meaning of saturation. And what is it for each filament type? Yeah, definitely. When I talk about saturation, is for each filament. Each formula has a saturation point. The rate at which it expands causes it. Its viscosity depending on temperature, material would be my guess. Okay, John. Mark you a few. Is polysmooth less dense, allows steams to escape without pushing the plastic around as much? I mean, I'm talking about polysmooth, but any material is the same, Mark UFU. If you have moist filament, the higher the temperature, the more issue. The lower the temperature, the less issue. Polysmooth was just an example because I have experience with it. But any filament. Okay, so I will wait with a little bit more hypothesis from you guys, and then I can give my hypothesis on that. Even freshly opened pool can contain significant amount of moisture. Yeah, I guess that depends on the manufacturers. But yeah, even if you just open a spool, doesn't mean it's completely dry, right? I mean, we can do our best to dry it, and believe me, all our spools are completely dry when we pack them. I mean, there might be some quality issue. I mean, maybe out of I don't know, out of 100,000 spools, you may have a spool that is above our quality standard somehow. But the main issue is all the shipping and stuff. Like if the bag is pierced, or if it stay at a very I don't know, at a high temperature and a high moisture, and then you will absorb more moisture will go through the bag, or this kind of thing. There's a lot of things that can happen. For the aluminum bag, much less. You shouldn't have much issue, but for the rest, you may for nylon bag. Filament can absorb moisture very quickly. Okay, so nothing new here. Blah 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 blah. Okay. What does this mean? From the data gathered above, it can be concluded that when it comes to printing nylon, you need to dry. Yeah, dry-wise is an inline drying thing. So I'm sure you've never heard about dry-wise, most likely. But dry-wise is basically an inline dryer. So you have your dryer that you dry before you print, but dry-wise is you put the spool inside, even if it's full of filament, and then you start printing with it, but it will dry it at the same time. It will dry what you need. It will dry. It's inline drying, I call this. Well, I think they also call this way. Drying the filament inline. Yeah. And that's from Thought 3D, the same that do Magic Goo. Okay, so actually, no much more information compared to what we said already during the stream. And then I read that one also, and there's no much information on this one. Okay, So maybe it changes state faster at higher temperature, doesn't have enough time in the hot end at lower temperature. Okay, so my hypothesis is what John said about the viscosity of the material. My hypothesis is that whether it's 200 degree or 220 degree, I think the water will behave more or less the same. They will change from water to gas in a similar rate and a similar expansion. The biggest difference for me is the viscosity of the material. In one case, the viscosity between 200 degree and 220 is big between the material. In one case, it's very viscous at 200 degree. At 220 is much less viscous. So I think the amount of force required for the moisture to create bubbles is significantly different. It's much easier for the moisture to create bubbles at 220 than it is to create it at 200 degree. So now the question is, even though it doesn't create the bubbles, does that still affect the mechanical property? Like, is the mechanical property of 200 degree printing different from 220 degree printing? I mean, let apart the fact that the layer adhesion is better for higher temperature, but just the effect of the water, the fact that you contain the water, it doesn't create bubbles, it doesn't affect because the viscosity is too high. Then does that mean that your part is less prone to being weak because of the moisture? That's another question. Okay, anyway, I think we've asked a lot of questions. I think we went around the wet filament topic pretty well. I will try to summarize that. I never find the time to summarize all our stream, but I will try to do my best to summarize all what we talk about in our different channel. But hopefully that was a good stream for you guys. I love talking about 3D printing. I love going in depth into all of these different topic, whether it's warping, whether it's wet filament or something. I think Rivo sent me an email with another topic. Let me have a look to see if it's an exciting topic. Rover. Okay, so what's that? The difference thing that will be a good topic to talk about. Okay. So Rover suggests that we open a PRINTBUSTER topic on direct vs Bowden extruder. Yeah, there's a lot of discussion around that already. Yeah, let me think about it. We can suggest this on Discord and see what people think about whether we should spend time. Because PRINTBUSTERS is about bringing new knowledge, okay, new type of knowledge, new logic, new theories to the 3D printing community. But I feel like direct drive and Bowden indirect drive are already, I don't know if we can bring much to the 3D printing community, but let's think about it. Thank you for your suggestion, Rover. Drive-wise is expensive. Well, it depends. Compared to what? Rover, you have to give a comparison point. It's like when people say our PA12 CF is expensive. Yeah, if you compare it to PS6 CF, then yes, it's expensive. But is that a good comparison to compare PS6 to PA12? So when you say something is expensive, we should always explain compared to what? Compared to your budget that you are willing to pay for this hobby or work, depending on where you use 3D printing. Is that expensive compared to another solution that you have found? Is that expensive compared to blah, 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 blah. So expensiveness or cheapness is always relative to something. And actually, as a company, that's the main thing we try to understand. You know, if we have some filament that are cheap compared to what? Are we closer to the budget of our customers, or are we competitive compared to other solutions out there, etc., etc.? So okay, so it's expensive compared to your budget. Okay. It's a good topic because there's always new people in the community. Yeah, that's a good point. Roger Rees. Okay, you guys ready for the drawing? So let's draw our Printbuster number 4 winner, which is going to be. Let me guess. I try to guess every time, and if the one I guess is the one that appears, then he will get 2 spool, not 1. So let me guess. The winner today is going to be. Is there a Mark here? Oh, Mark U of U. Okay, it's going to be Mark U of U. You ready? 5, 3, 4, 2, 1. Draw. Mark. Oh, sorry, Mark. It's Qi Deng. Qi. How do you pronounce that in English? Are you here, Qi Deng? Let me check. I haven't seen you too much in the chat, so I'm not sure if you're still there or you were listening to our science topic. Yeah, I cannot see you in the chat. Did you make it? Did you make it until the end? Maybe not. Okay, I give you 10 seconds because I know there is a delay. Oh, okay, you're here. Awesome. Congratulations, Qi Deng. Hopefully I pronounced that properly. Sorry if I mispronounced. And he's here, yeah. So please contact me there. I don't think I have a comment on YouTube. Another reason why I love Twitch. I guess I can have comment on YouTube, but yeah. So Qi Deng, if you don't mind sending me an email. And you just won a spool of polymaker filament. So congratulations to you, and thank you for joining our Printbuster stream. I hope you enjoyed our discussion. So guys, thank you again for joining. And if you are interested in like 3D printing projects and stuff, I have a lot of awesome topics for this Saturday stream. So every Saturday there is the Polymaker Hangout on Twitch. And this Saturday, I have a lot of very interesting topics. It's a little bit of project, but a little bit of innovation. Some new stuff that I have found this week. You may have heard about it. There is 2 Kickstarter. There's a very very new nozzle that just came out, and there is, you know what? Let me get you excited a little bit. I think I put that in my bookmark somewhere, and then I want to let you know a little bit what we're going to talk about, because I think it's pretty awesome. So you obviously have that Kickstarter, the how you call that, right? The Swapper 3D, right? You've seen that. I definitely want to dig that. I want to understand how it works, what it is, what's the purpose, how are they going to perform on the market, how do they go against similar solution, etc. There is another one that is not in my I don't know where I put that. There's another one that is a specific nozzle that is not round. It's a slit, and then it can change the size, and it really give a brand new innovation in 3D printing. And there is an additional topic which I won't say today, but you can come on Twitch Saturday if you want to learn more about it. So thank you again. Can they be invited to join the stream? Who? Are you mean the guy from Swapper 3D? Can they be invited? Yeah, the CHT nozzle is nice also, but I think there've been a lot of video that Swapper. I don't have any contact with them, but I can try. I can try to see if they would be willing to talk about their innovation. Okay, thank you again, everyone, for joining the live stream, and I will see you either on Saturday for a hangout, either next Tuesday on YouTube for the Q&A, or next week for another episode of PRINTBUSTERS. Thank you again, everyone, and then I will see you in the next one. Have a good one, everyone.